Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the MCast Podcast. My name is Matthew Castaneda, and I'm excited to bring you guys back for episode 3. Episode 2 was definitely a great one with TJ Roberts and Chris Wiest. I think is how you say it. I keep mispronouncing his name somehow. When talking about the lockdowns in Kentucky. Sorry for that misspoke, Joe Biden moment. But now for this episode, I brought on State House Representative candidate in the state of Florida for House District 52. His name is Chandler Langevin. Chandler, good evening. How are you doing today?
Good. It's nice to be on your podcast, man. How you doing?
Yeah, of course. I'm doing great. And it was a pleasant surprise. Like, you announced quite early. Like, in fact, I was asking friends when I heard about your candidacy. I'm like, is there a special election going on or something? And they're just like, no, he's running 2022. I'm like, oh, so, talk about getting a head start for sure. So, obviously unless any listeners here are from Florida or from your area, know your name, just tell us who you are, your background is, and, who's Chandler Langevin?
Yeah, so I'm a born and raised Floridian. I was born up in the Panhandle. I'm from Niceville, Florida, same town that Matt Gaetz is from. But at the age of 10, we moved down here to Brevard County. I've been in Brevard County since then. I graduated from Titusville High School, got my associate's degree from Eastern Florida State College. I enlisted in the Navy Reserves at 18. And shortly after getting my associate's degree, I got called up to go to Afghanistan. I did a 7-month deployment there. After that, I had a lot of money saved up, so I decided I was going to take a gap year and go study the effects of communism in other countries. So I actually traveled the world for a year. I lived in Cambodia for a little bit, the Republic of Georgia for a little bit, Slovakia for a little bit. And I got to talk to a lot of people who lived under communist regimes. I got to go to the killing fields in Cambodia. I got to see the destruction that the Soviet Union caused on the GDP of Georgia. And it really motivated me to be like, hey, big government is not the way.
Yeah, that's basically the end result of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was horrifying.
I can imagine. I was just about to ask, how was that like? I mean, I'm sure you obviously had special protections being, in the service and everything, and, of course, being a traveler. How was that? How was that lifestyle compared to the United States? How the people look, their livelihoods? How was the environment there overall?
The exact opposite in a lot of ways. Some of the countries have recovered to some extent, like Slovakia is doing a lot better. Now they're part of the EU, still not perfect, but countries like Cambodia and the Republic of Georgia are still just, suffering immensely compared to what, they could be at right now. Like when the Soviet Union pulled out of Georgia, they immediately stripped half their GDP overnight. And then a corrupt president shortly after that in the 90s took what was left. So, like a puppet state, essentially. Essentially, yeah. So I was sleeping in villages that had no power still to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wild. So, and then from there I came back home and then was immediately redeployed to the Pacific. So, and I was actually in Japan and Korea when COVID broke out. Our deployment got extended, and I finally came back to Florida and kind of in the middle of this. I call it a government pandemic more than anything, but I came back in about July to Florida.
Oh wow, that was really recent. Yeah. So, which especially now you can, that you mentioned that you've literally just come back to Florida. What was it? Not even a year ago, you said. So, what inspired you to get into politics so quickly after coming back from Florida? I mean, and you did a lot of service for the country. I don't think that many other people can dare say that they've done. So. What made you want to start, run for office or getting back into politics once you came back?
Right. So I was always interested in politics. I always followed it. I was deployed in Afghanistan when Trump got elected. I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning watching the election results. I've always been really interested in politics. As soon as I came back, we're in another presidential election cycle, a lot going on. So I decided I had the opportunity. I'm going to dive into it. And I accepted a request from Young Americans for Liberty to go work on Operation Win at the Door. And I told them, though, that, I just got back. I don't want to go to New Hampshire or West Virginia. I'm only doing it if there's a campaign in Florida. So I get a call a week later saying, hey, you know what? We're endorsing this guy who's awesome, sponsor of constitutional carry. I'm a big 2A guy, by the way. Sponsor of constitutional carry. His name's Anthony Sabatini. Over in Lake County. He's only 2 hours away from you. Do you want to go work on his campaign?
Actually, now you mention that, weren't we the ones having that conversation? Because I remember having that type of call when I was working there a while back. I remember having that call with somebody.
Yeah, our mutual friend Logan was my election director for that one, and so that's how I ended up meeting Logan. And Ian Escalante is the state chair, but he came and worked on the campaign and stayed with us too.
So. Yeah, he's the regional director now for that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know him pretty well. No, that's quite the coincidence. I almost didn't realize that. So I'm like I had a feeling like your name was familiar somewhere. I'm just like, I don't know how, but I mean, as you could see, and I've been, I'm no longer part of the organization. Obviously, I'm still very supportive of the cause that they're committed to, to getting Liberty legislators elected into office, But nonetheless, obviously being a liberty-loving guy, like myself, what are your thoughts like on Florida? Because usually, like for perspective, I'm a Jersey native, right? I've never been a biggest fan of, New Jersey government whatsoever. Mostly in both parties. I mean. We literally have the leading Republican state assemblyman has gotten Fs from the NRA.
Wow.
Like he's supposed to be the lead Republican, he's supposed to push conservative values, but they're just simply not doing that. So, tell me, what are your thoughts on, what Florida is like, the leadership there in the legislature, the Governor Ron DeSantis. What are your thoughts on the leaders in Florida now?
Yeah, so that's a great topic because everyone knows Florida right now is the free state of Florida, and we are. For the most part, we're very lucky that we have Governor Ron DeSantis. The way he handled COVID, and make no mistake, we did close for a little bit during COVID, and that is something that I still tell people and need to be addressed. But where I really like Ron DeSantis is the fact that he came out later and very early and said, "Hey, I was working with the best information I had, but now I realize that was not a good idea. I'm never going to do that again." He essentially admitted, hey, he was wrong. I'm sorry. Let's move on and let's get our economy back on track. And for a politician to do that takes a lot.
Yeah, not many politicians do that for sure.
Yeah. So I can still give him 100% credit for doing that. And, we wouldn't be the free state of Florida that we are today if it wasn't for Governor Ron DeSantis. And the reason I say that is because the rest of the kind of state party, especially in the legislature, is mostly a bunch of rhinos. They're not much better, probably a little bit better than what you got up in New Jersey, but they're not significantly better. And honestly, they're not willing to do what it needs to take. And had we had the because Ron DeSantis wasn't the establishment guy running in the governor election.
Wasn't that Adam Putnam is how you pronounce his name?
Adam Putnam, yeah. And he's just a typical good old boy, swamp creature Republican. And make no mistake, had he been elected and become the governor of our state, we would be facing the exact same thing that a lot of these so-called conservative states are facing right now with mask mandates. And still to this day, we have conservative states out there with 50% capacity in restaurants and mask mandates. How is that conservative? Doesn't make any sense. And that's what Florida would have been had we not had Ron DeSantis, because that is what the standard swamp creature in Tallahassee is like. So DeSantis him being in office and doing all these awesome things is kind of masking that a little bit. So I like to get out and tell people hey,
pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. I like to get out and remind people of that. And that's why I'm running, is because the guy that I'm running against is one of those spineless swamp creature. He's a real establishment puppet, honestly. Really no original ideas, just kind of does whatever the lobbyists tell him to do. And a lot of time that's involving voting against conservative values. Like in 2018, and this was one of the big bills that the Republican Party pushed that got me really going from Republicans all the way to, oh, wait, maybe sometimes they do make mistakes and we need to hold our own party accountable and make sure that they're enforcing our conservative values, is the Parkland bill. After the Parkland shooting, our Florida conservative legislator, quote unquote, had an immediate knee-jerk reaction session. Let me remind everybody, we have a super majority in the Florida House and a solid majority in the Florida Senate, and we have a Republican governor. And at the time, we still had a Republican governor with Rick Scott, same situation. And a knee-jerk reaction. They were in session already, passed the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas bill, which essentially stripped the Second Amendment from every single 18, 19, and 20-year-old Floridian. At the time, 18 and up, you could buy a shotgun or a rifle. Now, it has to be 21 and up to buy any type of firearm whatsoever. They extended the waiting period from 3 days to 5 days, and they implemented red flag laws, which, in my opinion, are not only against the Second Amendment, they're against the Fourth Amendment. They violate due process, and they put our citizens and our brave law enforcement officers at risk, because now law enforcement officers have to go, enforce these risk protection orders. So, and that's a very scary thing to be in for no reason, because it's against the Constitution. So that was our Republican legislators that passed that. And since then, we've had guys like Anthony Sabatini go up in session and file constitutional carry and file bills to try to make us a Second Amendment sanctuary state. And they are met with deaf ears. He's seen as, this outsider when he's just trying to pass common Republican bills. I mean, Texas just passed constitutional carry, and they're a larger state than we are with a bigger population. So it doesn't really make any sense, but it does make sense because our Senate president at the moment, Wilton Simpson, got like $100,000 or more dollars from an anti-gun PAC, and then said, I can take the money, but it doesn't mean I'm anti-gun. I might as well just spend it if they're going to give it to me. But then immediately we have a Democrat as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, and no senators willing to file constitutional carry on the Senate side or anything that's good on the House side gun-wise.
Right. It's almost like they sent that money to him for a reason.
Right.
Like, what was the last time you got, like, what you said, $150,000 check? Like, here you go, just because, I'm charitable, Don't ignore my name, there's clearly no interest here, nothing to see here, but... Yeah. Which, that's crazy.
A good smile. That's what it was.
Right. Exactly, just doing that with the smile is just, like, you know what to do. So, with Thad Altman... Like, tell me more about this guy, because you said he's a rhino. I'm assuming he's probably voted for at least some of these, non-conservative measures, frankly. Like, tell me more about him. Like, tell me how, he plays the role in this and why you're ultimately challenging him.
Yeah, so there's a few main things come to mind. The first one was he did vote for the Parkland bill. He voted for gun control. He has always voted for higher taxes, which is crazy. He just got done voting for Florida's single largest tax increase in the form of an online sales tax.
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah. It's like, and by the way, the whole online sales tax, what's crazy is their whole reasoning for that was because, we lost a lot of revenue due to COVID. So now we need to tax the people even more so that we can build our revenue back up.
Sounds like Governor Murphy.
We're still recovering from this pandemic that, you guys closed us down. You made it so that the service industry employees couldn't work when you closed the bars and restaurants down. And because you didn't get sales tax after that, you're going to implement a new tax. Again, that's our conservative legislator. And that's an embodiment of Thad Altman and legislators like him. And so on top of that, he has also skirted term limits. We have term limits here in Florida, but what the actual term limit says is 8 consecutive years on either the House or the Senate. So what he did is he did a few terms in the House, then went and did his 8 consecutive years in the Senate, and now he's back and can restart his time in the House. And so now he's going to have been in the House for 6 more years. So we're talking about being in the Florida legislature for like up to 20 years at this point.
Wow. No, that's crazy. So tell me more about your district, though. Like District 52, like I noticed that's, kind of more central Florida. I mean, you're not too far from Sabatini, I imagine. So, like, just tell me more about the area. And, if I don't know if you started knocking doors already, if you started reaching out to people within your district, considering you recently announced your campaign. Like, what's that experience been like so far? And, like, what's the sentiment among the voters?
Yeah, so that's a good point. District 52 itself is an awesome district. We have Melbourne, and then the Indian River Lagoon comes right down the middle, and then we have the barrier, beaches, the beach towns from Satellite Beach down to Melbourne Beach. And so it's just a very Florida area. Just everyone's out on the waterways. Everyone's going to the beach. It's a great place to live and be. We have some of Brevard County itself, the county that my district in, is probably like the freest county. We were one of the only counties in Florida to not even vote if we were going to have a countywide mask mandate. Like, they didn't even have the vote. They were just like, no, straight off the bat. And the mayor of Melbourne is a super liberty guy. He said in a podcast a couple months ago, the only reason he ran is because he hates government. So it's like, and that's the biggest city in my district. So I'm like, and we have, we have like the largest branch of the Republican Liberty Caucus in my county. We have the founding chapter of Moms for Liberty in Brevard County, which they're just doing a phenomenal job. And they have some chapters now up in New Jersey as well. They're trying to fight things like critical race theory in our schools and getting Liberty School Board candidates elected. They're just doing awesome things. And they were founded right here in my district. So we have some awesome, like, the Liberty movement is so strong where I live. And the sentiment for having an establishment puppet as a state representative, there's no taste for it. Everyone's over it. I have not yet met a single person that's like, oh, yeah, Thad Altman, he's a great guy. Let's vote for him. Everyone's like, no, we need someone who's going to be pro-liberty. We need someone who's going to be a fire starter and who's going to go up to Tallahassee and fight for our liberty and conservative and our constitutional values. And that's what my district's all about. So I'm happy to be able to convey that message and push that message further and hopefully take it to Tallahassee.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you definitely seem like a much more principled guy, but, because, like, obviously, like, with everything in history and even with political parties, things change, people's perspectives have changed. Again, I like to do a little research and, like, on all the potential guests I have coming on before, I bring them on. I mean, you and I definitely seemed a lot more aligned than I first imagined. I noticed, like, well, actually, let me ask it this way. What makes you different from a stereotypical Republican? Like, I mean, for me, like, just for me, for example, like, I'm a bit more liberty-minded, definitely fit more into that Ron Paul camp. I mean, I was part of YAL for over, like, 2.5 years, so how could it not? But what makes you different? Like, I've seen you share, like, articles from Mises Institute, from other liberty guys like Phil Bishop in Florida. Like, what makes you different from, like, your typical Republican?
Well, first off, I got to give a shout out to my guy, Phil Bishop. He's doing an awesome job. He's exactly the embodiment of what the Republican Party of Florida should be. And I'm really proud to know Phil Bishop. But to answer your question, yes, like being a fan of the Austrian School of Economics, all of our Republicans claim to be free market economists. And then when it's time to prove that, they go, let's just spend more instead. Let's spend ourselves out of debt. It doesn't make any sense. Let's print more money. Let's raise
modern monetary theory, essentially.
Exactly. It's like, how are you a free market economist again? Exactly. So no, I love the Austrian School of Principle of Economics, and that's a huge difference between me and the majority of Republicans, because they say that they're free market economists until anything happens, and then all of a sudden they're not free market economists. The state of Florida just had its single largest budget increase as well to take advantage of their single largest tax increase that we just had. So that's just a standard thing that makes me different from most Republicans. Also, again, as a big Second Amendment guy, most Republican politicians are like, I support the Second Amendment. I support your right to go hunt a deer. And it's like, but that's not what the Second Amendment is about at all.
Exactly. It's like, and it's funny because, like, I've talked to legislators, right? Like, there's been, like, just again, I don't want to invoke YAL too much into this, but essentially, like, I've talked to legislators before to get them endorsed by organizations such as the Operation with the Door campaign and other liberty-minded organizations. But the problem was when it came to the constitutional carry question, for example, I've seen them vote no on it. And I'm like, but they literally were boasting about, like, how they were supported by the NRA, supported by all these gun rights organizations. And I literally asked them, like, on a follow-up call, like, hey, what's up with this? Like, how come you voted this way? Like, did you misread the question? Tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. And they're like, oh, no, I read it pretty clearly. I'm like, wait, so I basically tell them just, like, professionally, like, just give me a rationale, like, why? And they're just like, oh, I believe in the Second Amendment, NRA endorsed, but, I don't feel like that, the people should have, all the types of guns in the world, and, it's going to be like the Wild West, which turned out to be objectively false because there was a lot of gun control during the Wild West era. So even that rationale just didn't make any sense. So it's just like, who really supports the Second Amendment? Like, how far are conservatives willing to go when it comes to it? I mean, in your case, like, there's not, like you said, there's not many conservatives in Florida that, really support the Second Amendment as much as, they say they do. What's going to be different? Do you feel that, with not just yourself, but other potential liberty-minded candidates that could be primarying, establishment Republican candidates, given that happens in 2022, do you believe it's a realistic possibility that constitutional carry will get passed through the legislature and ultimately signed by Governor DeSantis into law?
I think it's a realistic possibility, but it's going to take an insane amount of work. It's going to take a combination of getting some of those people elected. It's going to take getting someone elected to our state Senate that is willing to say, I don't care, I'm filing constitutional carry, at least getting it into committee so that, we can at least watch them kill it in committee and take it to the next level. But the other way that I'm fighting that, besides just running for state representative, is I'm actually the founder and president of a gun rights organization here in Florida that is trying to push constitutional carry, push activism for the Second Amendment. And what we're actually doing is you already have some of the gun organizations like Gun Owners of America and National Association of Gun Rights and stuff have lobbyists. And then you got Florida Carry, who's our state level group that was actually founded because, I don't know if you know this, Florida's only one of 3 states that has no open carry whatsoever. Only 3 states in the union, and Florida, are this so-called conservative state, the free state of Florida, has no open carry. One of only 3 states. So that Florida carry got founded off of that, trying to get open carry passed. So they're kind of our state level gun rights organization, and they do a great job, and they have a great legal team. But you can lobby and sue all you want, but if you have, if the people aren't loud, and if you don't have the legislators that are willing to listen to those loud people and those lobbyists, then it really doesn't matter. It's going to fall on deaf ears. So my organization does 2 things. It's called Protect the Second, and you can check it out at www.pro-second.org. But basically what it does is we identify, train, and get candidates elected that are going to be no compromise pro-Second Amendment. And what we also are working on doing is building a loud voice and making the gun vote relevant again by getting everybody hyped up. And we really want to go into the 2022 legislative cycle when Anthony Sabatini files constitutional carry for the last time in 2022 before he goes to Congress. We want to take hundreds of people up to Tallahassee with our Protect the Second shirts on and the lobbyists from all these organizations on one day and go, are we loud enough yet? Hundreds of people are here in your office saying, give us our Second Amendment rights, doing the calls, going to their home offices when they're out of session before they go up to Tallahassee, and getting our voices loud. It's very unfortunate. We shouldn't have to be loud. We haven't been loud because it's our constitutional right. And so people who are pro-constitution and pro-gun are going, well, why do I need to be loud? It's my constitutional right. They're supposed to be protecting it. They swore an oath to the Constitution, but they're not. So unfortunately, we have to be loud. And that's what my organization is all about. We just founded it in January, and we're really growing it right now. And that's our goal, is to go into Florida's 2022 legislative session hard.
Well, yeah, that's fantastic, honestly. Wow. I mean, I feel like we've covered a lot of stuff so fast, but honestly, like, this is really exciting what's going on in Florida. I almost don't know what to say, really. Might edit this part out, to be honest. But yeah, no, this has definitely been great. Obviously, I mean, I guess just to wrap things up, this, again, we just went over everything really, pretty straightforward, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Where can people find you on social media? Like, where can people find you to follow you or support you?
Yeah, right now I'm just doing everything on my Facebook page. It's just Chandler Langevin for state representative. Go ahead, check it out. Like my page there. If you just want to add me as a friend, use Chandler Langevin. And I'm just doing everything right there for now. Our website's going to go live soon, and you'll be able to find that if you follow me on Facebook.
All right, fantastic. Well, Chandler, thank you so much, honestly. And thank you, everyone, for listening in to this episode of the MCast Podcast. I have links in my social media in the description down below. It's also going to be on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify. I also even have a Patreon to help support me in getting more liberty-minded candidates and activists like Chandler Langevin onto the show. And Chandler, thank you so much for coming on. It's definitely been a great conversation. I'm really excited on your campaign, and I wish you the best, especially considering I got personal friends working for you. So I'll definitely be rooting for you.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on your podcast, and vote for liberty.
Yep. Thank you, Chandler.